What's up, guys? Old Ironslides interview here. He drives a 91 Camaro. Zach Catlin. Zach, what's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. Just hanging out in the garage.
Cool, man. So, starting from the top, man, how long have you been into drifting?
I think I started around 2004.
Golly, that is an early bloomer. I mean, that means that you were drifting right about the time that our previous interview, Ryan Hampton, was drifting. And did you like meet Ryan before?
No, he was a West Coast guy as far as I knew. And he was, a pretty big influence. He was a pretty cool guy. Seen all his YouTube videos with the 69 Camaro and the Falcon livery and all that.
All right.
Pretty cool stuff. But the thing that got me into it was I found this flyer for like a U.S. drift event at Old Dominion Speedway, and me and a couple buddies from high school went up and saw it, and it was like the coolest thing we've ever seen. We can go in the pits, we're talking to the drivers, they're telling us all the cool techniques, we're asking them questions, they're giving us amazing answers, and because we didn't know much about it at the time. We're like, do you use skinny tires? Can you just put spare tires on the back? And they're like, no, believe it or not, we actually need a lot of grip, because it's competitive out there. The grip gives us, the ability to control the slide. They were just really on point about everything. And they just helped us out to understand what they were going through. And then we go to see the competition, and it was awesome. I mean, it was so close. There was a bunch of one more times. Everyone who was watching it was just cheering and super stoked. So we wanted a piece of that for ourselves after seeing that,
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, man. So all the way back in 04, it must be completely day and night versus what we have today as far as competitions go.
It is, but these guys were real dedicated. The event was held by US Drift. And the guys that were there were real solid. I remember specifically, it was like James Evans. He was driving a black S13, just killing it out there. This guy, Matt Martin, he was super killing it out there. I mean, those guys were like 1 and 2, and their cars were pretty nice. I mean, not really nice by today's standards, but I mean, they went above and beyond as far as taking the time to do the due diligence to get the suspension right, try and get the angle right, and do cool stuff with power. I mean, the Matt Martin was running like a KA with a turbo on it, making like way over 400 horsepower to the wheels, which at the time was, pretty amazing. So, they weren't just messing around. They were like scientists and doctors with it, even way back then.
It's pretty neat, honestly. I wish I could go back in time and watch that myself. So this is back in 04. Did the same year, did you get your first drift car, or did it take a couple years? Or, man, what was your first drift car?
My first drift car was like my first car, my 91 Camaro. Okay. I got it with the intention to autocross with it because that's what my dad did. He was really awesome at autocrossing, and before I could drive or anything, I was his pit crew. I'm changing tires, watching the other guys, talking to the other guys, seeing if I could get any tips of their setups and what they're doing, spying, if you will. And so yeah, I wanted to build my own little autocross car, and pretty basic setup, Coney shocks, and the car's a 1LE, which means it comes with, like Corvette brakes, aluminum drive shaft, special 5-speed transmission, baffled fuel tank, a couple little things that just make it pretty competitive. So, had a little bit of fun with that, and it actually wasn't too bad. But with autocross, there's a lot of, you're shagging cones and you're waiting all day to get your 3 minutes. And then I see these drifters, they're getting all sorts of track time. And I'm like, all right, I want a piece of that.
So did you just drive like same event? You're like, hey, I was supposed to drive autocross, but I'm gonna go try drift, or like, did you like go home, change the car up a little bit, then try drift?
Um, I didn't change the car at all. I just, gave it a shot, and it seemed to work pretty good. So, the tires are obviously different because with autocross, you're running the really soft, sticky compounds like 315s all the way around, but doesn't mean it doesn't slide around. So the principles are still there. You're just hanging out a little bit more. So it actually came fairly natural. And being able to do like the tight slaloms that you do in autocross
Hmm.
kind of gives you the instincts to get that counter steer ahead so that, you're not behind and spinning out, which is kind of nice. So it was a fairly smooth transition. But yeah, I'd probably like to go back to autocrossing, but ever since I did drifting, I don't think I ever looked back. It was just that much fun.
That
Not to throw any shade on autocrossing, because I mean, if you're in the right class and the competition is there, that's a pretty awesome thrill as well. It's just, the class I was in wasn't, if you're running a 91 Camaro, like you're not really, that's not like the class everyone's running. There's not like 50 million people there with the same car. You're basically running by yourself or with another guy, and you just don't get that same level of competition as like a Miata or something.
It definitely makes sense. So, has the Camaro like developed through the years? Like, what have you changed throughout the years to make it a better drift car?
Off the bat, I noticed that the steering angle wasn't quite the same as the other cars. It was a lot easier for me to spin out, trying to do the same things that they're doing. So, stock angle, I think, was like 26 degrees or something. So I started by removing the steering stops on the control arms and making some notches for the brakes because they would contact the control arms. And I think that got me like between 32 and 35 degrees of angle, which to me seemed a lot at the time. It did improve and help things out. Then eventually I got a little more hardcore with it, and I took 4 control arms and I went to the junkyard. I pulled them all myself and cut them up, welded them together in such a way that I made a new control arm that was 2 inches longer. And that gave me the ability to have about 45 degrees of steering angle with a new steering box from turn one and a lot of massaging on the inner fender wells and various other metalwork to accommodate the scrub on the body and things like that.
Is that where it's at now? Is with those Ford control arms, modified Ford control arms?
Yeah, that's pretty much where it sits right now because there's more stuff you can do with it, but right now it sits on just the regular spring. It's got the shock separate. The spring is in the K member. The shock is on the strut tower. I kind of like it that way for durability and everything because if you go to a coilover setup, you're putting all that stress on the shock tower, which it wasn't originally designed for.
Huh.
And because it's a heavy car with such a big engine, you could redesign it. You could do the coilovers and all that. But with the 45 degrees it's got now, it's a tank. I can fly off the course and I don't need to worry about bending my strut towers or anything. The K member handles it all, no problem. So if I was to compete, yeah, I'd probably do some coilovers and put it on the strut towers. But I think as a result, there'd be more stress on the chassis and it would have a limited lifespan, so to speak. And the way I've been driving it now, it's been the same car for like 20 years. So I don't really want to abuse it as if it's just something that's going to be thrown away. So
Okay.
not as much competitive, just kind of having fun sort of deal.
And what about the rear end? Is this still basically a stock rear end? I imagine you may have gone with a spool or a mini spool if it's still. Will those come with 10 bolts?
Yeah. It was a 10 bolt and it lasted for a while. I put all the solid shims in it and all the nice Richmond gears. At one point, I had like a Torsen T2R diff, which was awesome. I loved it, but those don't last forever. So when that broke, I went to a welded diff, and that worked pretty good. But eventually, after some hard use, I destroyed it like the whole rear end, like everything,
Oh,
bearings, gears. It was awesome. Like the drive shaft broke. I was going like 100. Took out the trans and everything,
oh
but
my goodness.
yeah. There was like a dude behind me, but somehow it all ended up safe and cool. And next thing you know, I'm saving up for a couple years and got me a Ford 9-inch with a spool and the big axles and all that cool stuff.
Yeah. That's nice because like you at least have some gear change options, even though buying a whole
Yeah,
another third member is probably a whopping $1,500 out the door if you're lucky. So,
right,
but
right.
at least you have the option, you know.
Yeah, I run a weird gear set. I don't think many people run what I run. I
um.
run a 3.0 gear.
Oh wow, that is
Yeah,
3.0. Wow, that is really low in comparison to what. Yeah, that is. That is
yeah. Most
weird. That.
people are 410s, 430s,
Mm-hmm.
460s even, or 373s.
So
Some people run 323. I've ran that before. Pretty good combo.
yeah. So what do you drift mostly in the high end of first and the low end of second?
Never in first. Second will take me over 100 miles an hour. And third, obviously past there. Third goes to like 130 or 140.
Yeah.
Fourth would go to like 185. But I can drift low speeds in second, really good. It doesn't bog or anything somehow, which is weird. Um, some tracks, I have the option to hit third if I want extra smoke. And at Summit, I've even engaged fourth somehow. I'm not even sure how, but like I guess it just has some torque and it seems to work.
Yeah.
But it's also a NASCAR dog box trans, so
Ooh.
it's got custom ratios. So, I switched out the second gear, I switched out the third gear, so it all kind of caters to the wheel speed that I'm looking for.
I mean, I've come to realize with the whole wheel speed stuff that a lot of it's just whatever feels good to you. Honestly, if it works for you, then stick to it for sure.
Oh
Is
yeah.
that what engine is in this? Is it still an LT1?
Oh no, no. Right now it's a dart block. It's just the old school Gen 1 Chevy dart block
Okay.
with a 4.125 bore, 3.75 stroke. So it's like a 401 cubic inch.
Oh,
Yeah. Because I made all sorts of charts and tables and graphs of how much I'm willing to spend and what I want and how much life I want to get out of it. And I ran through all these combinations, and this is just what I settled on because I could have put an LS in it, but I kind of wanted something brand new. I wanted every single piece new. I wanted it all balanced and matched and nice. And when I priced all that stuff out, uh, it just seemed cheaper for me to get the old school Gen 1 Chevy stuff. And the dart block, they actually fixed a lot of the downfalls of the motor. The head bolts are blind on the dart block instead of going all the way through to the water jacket.
huh.
Because I've had failures in the past where you stress out. Because if you're making like 450 wheel horsepower, like, you're really stressing that thing out. And, I've had issues where the head bolts give out and then your head gasket gives out. Next thing you know, you got coolant in your oil. Doesn't last very long after that. And, there's ways around it, but trying to put head studs in a car where you've got to put, uh, what's it called? Thread sealer on a bolt that's like you're torquing the spec. It's kind of weird. I'd rather just have it a blind hole and put the ARP lube on it and then follow the procedure and have it awesome instead of worrying about this slimy stuff squishing around in there.
So do you have that? That's pretty awesome. The small block Chevy Gen 1 because that's actually a engine currently building for my Pro Am car. And is that EFI or carbureted?
No, no, it's carbureted. I've got the block. It's the 401 and the heads are the AFR 220s, fully CNC ported heads, and I got them with the spread port pattern, so that the middle ports, they're usually always right next to each other, that are just make it a pain to put headers on and make the headers seal. They've got that little bit of space in there so your headers can seal up better and you can put bigger primary tubes.
Huh.
So it's not quite as good as the LS where they're all equal spaced apart, but it's just a little something so that you can, build a set of custom headers that get the job done. And so that's what I did. I built a really nice set of custom headers where, I've got all the right radius bends and everything just fits where it's supposed to. It's got the merge collectors in there and it's all nice and wrapped and coated. Just kind of cool.
What fuel do you run to that thing? Is it a race gas, E85?
Oh, just regular pump gas.
Oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. So what's about the compression ratio on that then?
I think it's 11-1.
Oh, okay. So it's moderate, but not incredibly aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
wow.
was just kind of going for longevity and just being a cheapskate, having some fun with the boys, but don't need to go too hard.
Well, I mean, at some point, it's going to pay dividends. Not have every ounce of power. You'll having that reliability. I mean, the current engine I'm running too was built just for reliability, and I mean, I ran a whole season on it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe horsepower isn't everything.
Oh yeah, it sure is awesome though. I mean, when you're lacking it, it is everything. But then once you got it, you're like, all right, let's go down. Let's go a little bit towards reliability.
What are you using for like Rivlander? Is it a MSD box, or do you have?
Yeah. It's a Mallory unit.
Okay.
It's basically like an MSD box, but I can push a button on the dash and I can raise the rev limit by about 100 RPM, and just by pushing it with a button, and it's got 2-step and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of nice.
That's pretty cool, actually. Man, that sounds like a gnarly setup. So you're rocking a good built small block Chevy with a dog box and a Ford 9-inch. I mean,
Yeah.
that's about as bulletproof as you're going to get with
Yeah.
with a setup.
And for reliability, I went with the roller cam,
Oh yeah,
but it's also got the short travel lower, so you get a little bit of that high RPM stuff, but the laziness of not having to adjust the valves,
nice,
which is kind of cool.
Nice. So as far as like inside the car, like did you have to build your own cage, or like what was the process of cage? I think I saw it had a cage, right?
Yeah, it had a cage. I could build a cage, but at the time I wanted a cage. My fab skills were not nearly up to par. So I had the guys at Piper Motorsport build me one. The guy's name was Jed, awesome guy, and he knocked it out of the park. I'm glad I didn't make it because he made it exactly how it should be made, which is awesome.
Yeah,
And he even put the little triangle gussets everywhere he could as his little personal touch. I appreciate it.
it's definitely I see that a lot more in like round track builds than I do in drift builds, and I'm waiting for the day those kind of cross over. So it's kind of nice to see there's a little crossover. So throughout these changes, adding horsepower, a dog box, and a Ford 9-inch, like which one did you feel like the biggest difference?
They were all awesome, but probably the dog box. I was just blowing through T5s left and right. I don't know what it was about it, but I broke them in every single way. I even tried to like get all like fancy forged billet gears, internals, and all that stuff, but that just ended up in me cracking the whole housing apart.
Yeah, but that was like a GM T5, right? That's not like the T5s from Tremec.
Yeah, just the GM T5.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you can pull out of the junkyard or from that kind of car.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean those T5s were rated for like 150 horsepower.
Yeah.
They were rated for like little to nothing, honestly. So I could
I think
definitely
if you
see the
drove them,
frustration there.
if you drove them right, they probably would last you. But not doing the ambitious drifting stuff,
Yeah.
probably not going to last too long.
Yeah, there's not a lot of shock factor in drifting, but there's definitely enough to kill parts.
Oh yeah.
So you're a Summit Point local, or is that the closest track
Yeah.
to you, or do you have other tracks that are closer to you?
Oh, that's the closest track to me.
Yeah. Is that where you started drifting at? Was that where your first event was?
I mean, Old Dominion Speedway was even more local, but I think the first real awesome sanctioned event had to have been Summit Point.
Yeah. Have you ventured around too? I know you have Virginia International Raceway over there, and was it New Jersey? You have quite a
Yeah,
few options from what I've been
yeah.
told.
Oh,
So
VIR is awesome. It's a really great track. I'm kind of lazy, so the 4 hour drive, I'm kind of hit or miss on it. But that's a really nice track. It's downhill the whole way, so you don't need to have a million horsepower to feel good about it. And the corners are just hard enough to link that you really feel accomplished when you link them. So yeah, VIR is a great track. I love it. Englishtown is really awesome too. Um, Pretty much no tracks that I hate. They're all good, awesome tracks. But I've gone as far as Ohio, over to Kilcare
oh,
for
nice.
drifting, and that was a pretty cool track as well.
That is definitely one that's on my bingo card. They, from what I could tell, those guys have a unique style kind of up there. Those drift cars up there. So did you go? Have you been to any of these events and people are looking at your car what on earth?
I guess, but it's mostly a positive sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're reminiscing about how their mom or their dad or their uncle had one, or maybe they had one, and they're just glad to see something like that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can actually relate to that quite well. So do you frequently tandem with Kylie Mackey and Travis Snyder, or is this event here going to be something new?
It's been a while, but definitely no stranger to tandeming with those guys.
I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna make some really cool media to see all of us lined up and stuff like that to just go ham at each other.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
Have you tried any competitions with the Camaro?
Um, Tons, but not lately. Maybe we do a rivals event at Summit. I think I did that it was either last year or the year before. Pretty fun, but those guys really know what they're doing, and they'll get really close to you. And my car's so nice, and I've never had it wrecked in its whole existence. So I get a little anxious when I look over my shoulder and I see a guy right up on me. I trust him, but that extra pressure, you kind of question yourself. And so far, so good. But I try only to tandem with people that I trust, and in situations where I feel like no one's out to no one's out to prove something or go harder than they can.
Yeah, I have. I've been booped and I've been booped and I've booped, unfortunately, but definitely different classes of cars. I mean, that is a real beautiful Camaro you have, so I can definitely understand your perspective. It's very similar to Brian Bruton's in his Fox body. It's man, my car is nice. I'm not out here to ruin it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, me and him will probably get some good respectful tandems in.
Yeah. So when you're chasing somebody though, you still get pretty close though, right?
Oh yeah, I get as close as I can. I mean, I trust I trust the car, the guy in front of me. I mean, you watch the car, you can probably tell that they're going to spin before they know they're going to spin because you've got a front row seat at it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Unless something catastrophic goes wrong, which it always can. We try not to hit each other, and it seems to work out. But yeah, we also try to get as close as we can, as long as it's a reasonable situation.
Yeah.
Like I always like to, if I'm tandeming with somebody, I'll look at my tires, I'll look at their tires, see what they're running with at the moment. Because, some people, they start out with a fresh set of tires. Uh, Maybe by the time you're ready to tandem with them, they're on basically quartz. And, that's going to affect their driving style and things that they're capable of and not capable of. And if you see it, you can kind of get an idea of what to expect.
That is definitely those years of experience talking, because I could tell you by definitely in comparison to you, I'm very new, and there's been a lot of moments where I'm like, I might have one more lap in these tires, and I'll lead a 4-car train, like just hoping.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, I used to be like that too. And I still try to get the most out of my tires that I can. But, there's a point where you're like, all right, well, do I want to save this $50 worth of tire, or do I want to save this, $1 million worth of car?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it makes sense. What kind of tires do you like to run?
Right now I'm running Kendas. Oh, actually, I got Federals up front. I've been a Federal guy for the longest time. I love them, but they're just so hard to find and get. So I tried out Kendas, and I think I love them just as much.
I like I like the Kendas. I've never tried Federals though, so I'm honestly, after this interview, I might have to take a look at them and see what I think of them.
Yeah, I mean they're cool. If you're on Kendas, there's not much incentive to do them unless you're driving in the rain. I think the Federals are fantastic in the rain, and in those situations, I would just, if I had Kendas on, I'd pull them off and put the Federals on.
Oh, wow. I've never really had the opportunity. I guess we haven't had enough rain events over here for me to actually do any kind of testing like that. So at Summit Point, what kind of recommendations do you have for new drivers coming in over to Summit Point? For guys like me and David and JJ who've never been there.
Well, for one, if you are into sim racing, there is a really nice version of Summit and all of its tracks made by Yoshi Jeffrey. Shout out to him, he's the man. And if you or anyone needs help finding those tracks, I'd be more than willing to send you guys the links to get them. So that way you can at least know the layouts and the different routes and sort of what to expect and the speeds, where to shift and all that. But, if you don't have a sim on you, that's fine. Just show up at the track, and all the DN instructors are highly qualified. This isn't their first radio. They'll pretty much tell you what you need to know. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And they're more than willing to give you an answer or ride with you or give you pointers.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, basically don't mess up, don't crash, and you're good to go.
That's the whole core of drifting, is just don't screw up, right? So, is there any love you, shout out, sponsors you wanna talk about?
No sponsors, but I got time for I love yous and shout outs. Just first and foremost would just be, family. My dad, my brothers, my mom, my sister, all been very supportive. They'll come to the events, help me, because you go to an event and there's a lot of things that you have to do before you even get there. You're loading up tires, you're packing tools, food, you're trying to figure things out. And if you've got someone there to help you out, it just makes the day go by that much easier. So shout out to them for being supportive. The people that hold events, US Drift for, getting me hooked onto it. Shout out to them. Back in the day, the group Slideways were the ones that were hosting all sorts of events in my area. Yoshi Jeffrey, the guy that makes the tracks for Summit on Assetto. My buddy Alexander Nguyen, really great guy. Taught me all sorts of stuff about welding and fabrication. Let me work on his car in his shop. My buddy Brandon Bisbee, he let me store my car because there were times where, I didn't have a place to put my car and I'd just be able to keep my car there for like years, which was awesome because, some people have to sell their car or get rid of it if they don't have the space for it. but I had my buddy, and he made sure that everything was cool.
Wow.
Shout out to Summit Point, because they're just the best there. It's an awesome track, awesome facility. People who work there, they just love their jobs. They do it really well. I mean, even the people that are like, you wreck your car there, they're coming there, they're towing it. It's not their first rodeo. They're getting it done, getting you off the track. Next thing you know, you're back on the track. Quick Performance, they're not my sponsor or anything, but when I call them up, I need a rear end or something, or I need one for work, they're willing to work with me. They know they're so knowledgeable, and they really go that extra mile. G-Force, the guys that made the transmission, once again, not my sponsor, but they do great work. They stand behind it. I take my transmission there every once in a while to get serviced. It's pretty cheap. They do their thing. It comes back, and I just give it some more abuse. AED carburetors out in Richmond. They gave me my carb. I told them my whole setup. Basically, I just bolted it onto the car, and it ran great. I had it dyno tuned, switch out some jets, but basically, it's just been solid ever since. Place I work at, Shebish Brothers Automotive, and they let me do all sorts of stuff to my car because there's so many little details. You're sitting there staring at something for hours, tweaking this, dialing that in, and they've really let me put a lot of time in the car. And then unless I, name out all my friends, I'll be here for a while, but, shout out to all my friends. You know who you are, and that pretty much does it.
All right, man. And if anybody wants to keep up to date with you, what's the best place to see your media or see videos of you driving?
Pretty much YouTube. My channel is Sketchy Z28. I don't post a lot, but there's a couple videos in there here or there.
All right.
I've got an Instagram, but I don't use it very much. I think it's Sketchy 1LE. That's pretty much it.
All right, cool, man. Well, I thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to meeting you at Summit Point Motorsports Park on October 26th and 27th. And, well, guys, that's going to finish up another one. That was Zach Catlin, and you're going to see him slide his 91 Camaro here in a couple of weeks. Thank you again so much thank you again, Zach, for your time.
Oh, thank you. We're looking forward to getting some doors with you.